Suffering is a universal experience. No matter who you are, at some point in your life, you will encounter pain. And when that happens, a question inevitably arises. Does God understand what I'm going through? Can an infinite, perfect, and all-powerful being truly comprehend what it means to feel pain, loneliness, and despair?
To find answers, today I want to take you to a small village called Bethany, over 2,000 years ago. There, in a moment of profound pain, something happened that would forever change our understanding of God. Bethany was a special place for Jesus. It wasn't just a stop along his journey. It was a home away from home. There lived 3 people who were very dear to him: Mary, Martha, and their brother Lazarus. They weren't just followers of Jesus. They were friends, close friends. When Jesus was in Bethany, he wasn't the famous preacher or miracle worker. He was simply a friend who shared meals, who sat and listened, talked, and laughed. It's hard to imagine Jesus, the Son of God, in such human, everyday moments. But there he was, not just as a teacher, but as a friend. However, one day everything changed. Lazarus, his friend, fell gravely ill. Desperate, Mary and Martha sent a message to Jesus. "Lord, your friend is sick." Jesus received the news, and surprisingly, he didn't rush to go. It seemed he was waiting for something. He told his disciples, "This sickness will not end in death, but for the glory of God." But during those days of waiting, Lazarus died. Imagine what Mary and Martha must have felt. The anguish, the confusion, the sense of abandonment. Their friend, the man who had performed so many miracles, hadn't arrived in time. When Jesus finally arrived, Martha was the first to go out to meet him. Her words are heavy with pain. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." But even in her pain, there's a spark of faith. "But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask." In her suffering, Martha still believes that something can change. Jesus looks at her, and with a calmness that contrasts with Martha's inner storm, he says, "Your brother will rise again." Martha nods, thinking of the final resurrection. But Jesus knows something she has yet to understand. It is at this moment that we see the depth of Jesus' love. He is not just comforting Martha. He is revealing a much greater truth. "I am the resurrection and the life." This is not just a future promise, it's a present reality. Jesus is not only promising eternal life, he is promising life now, in the midst of pain and death. And then, something extraordinary happened. The shortest verse in the Bible, just 2 words. 2 simple words, but they hold an immeasurable depth. Here, in this moment, we see something so profoundly human, yet undeniably divine. Jesus, who knows that he will soon raise Lazarus from the dead, who knows with absolute certainty that death does not have the final word, does something that surprises everyone. Think about it. God himself, the creator of all things, allows himself to be overcome by grief, feel the raw, unfiltered pain of human suffering. He knows the end of the story. He knows Lazarus will rise. And yet he weeps. Why? Because these are not the tears of hopelessness. They are tears of solidarity. They are tears that speak of a God who enters into our suffering, who is not distant, not removed, but fully present in our deepest moments of despair. This moment is more than just a display of emotion. It is a revelation of God's very heart. It tells us that God is not a remote observer, untouched by human pain. Instead, he feels it deeply, intimately, as if it were his own. When Jesus weeps, he does not do so out of ignorance of the coming miracle, but because he fully enters into the grief of those around him. The grief of Mary, Martha, of everyone standing there. But why does Jesus weep if he knows he is about to turn sorrow into joy? Why would he shed tears when he is moments away from restoring life? The answer is layered and profound. Yes, Jesus weeps because he sees the raw, aching pain of Mary and Martha, because he feels the sting of losing a beloved friend. But perhaps there is something more, something deeper. Perhaps Jesus weeps because he sees the shadow of doubt in the eyes of the crowd, the creeping unbelief that questions whether even he can conquer death. Perhaps he weeps because he feels the weight of a world that has been broken by sin and suffering, a world where death seems to have the final say. In those tears, there is divine empathy, but also a pain that goes beyond human comprehension. The pain of a God who loves so fiercely that he is willing to experience our suffering with us, even when it stems from our own failure to trust in him. In those tears we can see divine empathy, but also a deeper pain. The pain of a God who loves the world so much that he is willing to suffer for it, willing to walk with us in our pain, even when that pain is caused by our own unbelief. Jesus' tears also reflect the larger narrative of the human condition, a story marked by loss, separation, and death. He stands there, fully God and fully human, embodying the paradox of divine omnipotence and vulnerability. He knows the end of the story, yet he pauses in that moment to honor the depth of human suffering, to validate the reality of pain that each one of us carry. In doing so, he shows us that it is okay to grieve, feel deeply, to not rush past the anguish that life often brings. And after the tears comes the miracle. Jesus calls Lazarus out of the grave, and life triumphs over death. This miracle is not just a historical event, it is a message for each of us. It tells us that no matter how dark the path may be, no matter how deep the pain, there is always hope. Because the same God who wept is the God who resurrects, the God who brings life where there was only death. So the next time you face pain, remember this: God understands. He has been there. He has felt what you feel. And in the midst of your suffering, he is with you, not just as an observer, but as a companion on the journey. Because when you cry, he also cries. And when you rise, it is he who lifts you up. You are not alone. You never have been. In the brokenness, in the doubt, in the questions that have no easy answers. And through those tears we see a God who walks with us through the valleys of shadow and brings life where there was only death. So what did you think of this reflection? How does it change your view of God to know that he experiences emotions just like we do? Does it challenge the way you see him, not as a distant being, but as a deeply empathetic presence in our lives? And how might you show more empathy towards others, following the example of Jesus, who did not shy away from sharing in our pain? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your reflections in the comments below. Let's start a conversation. Your insights and experiences can be so valuable to others who are watching. If you found this video meaningful, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It's a great way to support us. And stay tuned for more reflections that explore these deeper questions of faith, life, and everything in between. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to reading your comments.